Hey guys, Norman from Alpha X here. Gonna be bringing you a video. We're gonna discuss a few important topics about a few developments we've been doing in the company, a few new products, and let's get to it. We're gonna talk about the options of PNP ECUs versus the stock ECU, and why do you want an aftermarket ECU for your Genesis Coupe or first generation Kia Forte, since they're also compatible with the same ECUs as the Genesis Coupe. I'm going to show you the advantages and disadvantages of each option, the price points, and what do you get for your money depending on the ECU you get. So let's get to it. First, we're going to talk about the stock ECU tune. What are the advantages? What's the price? Who is it for? The price of stock ECU tunes is usually from $200 to $1,000 or more dollars, because this varies from show tunes, pops and bangs, just a basic show tune, to custom tunes with complete modifications to the turbo, injectors, many different things that we've done on the stock ECU. All these things are very complicated to code, very complicated to make them work right, and that's why each add-on has a charge, because we need to modify something in the stock operating system to make it work right. What are the advantages to a stock ECU tune? First off, we have stock drivability. If you just have basic bolt-ons, intercooler, an intake, exhaust, you can just get a stock ECU tune with mostly stock components, and the car's going to drive just like stock. It's not going to be any problem with weird misfires or anything, since most things are stock. An intake and exhaust is not going to change your fuel injection calibrations or basically the amount of air the thing is calibrated for. You get a bit more airflow, but you can compensate for that easily. And another advantage is that all the sensors have been calibrated by the OEM. Your NOx sensors, your fuel injectors, your intake air temperature sensors, your map sensors, they're all calibrated from the factory. So the calibration is going to be done to OEM spec. Remember, they need to give you a warranty when you buy a car that brings your ECU. So they make sure everything is exactly on the dot. The stock ECU came with the stock car, so you don't need to buy anything else when you get an ECU tune. You just go to the dealer, have your ECU flashed, and you get your more power, pops and bangs, rev limiters raised, cool new features. But we also have to talk about the disadvantages of the stock ECU. First off, it's not very expandable. There's no additional hardware inputs and outputs than what Hyundai gave us, Hyundai or Kia. So you can't add a flex fuel sensor to the stock ECU. For example, you can't add, let's say you get a fuel pressure sensor, you can't wire it to the stock ECU, it'll never see that. So if you want some safety depending on your fuel pressure, depending on your current AFRs, stock ECU can't do that because it's literally not made for that. You can't rescale sensors, so this is usually for big boost builds, and especially for BK1 Genesis Coupes. The stock map sensor only reads up to 22 psi, and our tunes, we don't run them past that on the stock ECU, because we like the stock ECU to be able to see like how much air is going in, so it can make all the proper fuel calculations. If it's going over what you want, it cuts, to have a bit more safety. On the stock ECU, you can't switch to a 3-bar map sensor, for example, but with an aftermarket ECU you can. And we can't change this because there aren't many documents that tell you what you need to change, so everything on the stock ECU would work with the aftermarket map sensor. So we keep it as it is, so there's as little issues as possible. Drivability worsens significantly when the fuel model is changed. The thing is, everything about the fueling on the stock ECU is modeled after a stock car. So whenever you change, especially the injectors, all this fuel model pretty much goes out the window. You get, the ECU would calculate how much fuel it needs for this amount of air, but now your injectors aren't the same, and they'll never be the same throughout the operating region of the injector. So you get some 100 more cc injectors, your entire fuel model changed. and you need to change a lot of things on the stock ECU, way too many. We do change things for it to make it run correctly, but there's always these tiny little details that you just can't get for the ECU to compensate exactly for. So sometimes you get slight hiccups or small drivability issues, and that's an issue that some people don't really like. I don't really like it, so that's another disadvantage. We can't change closed loop air fuel ratios. You just can't, because everything is pretty much hardwired for when it's in closed loop just to run at 14.7. On the BK2s, it's a wideband and it stays closed loop most of the time, but the fuel tables, again, we have definitions that we find from our sources, but sometimes the stock ECU doesn't use that table. It mixes a few other tables, and you don't know which one it's following in the exact moment, especially since we don't have good data logging. We can't really see where it's going through. There's poor boost control with aftermarket turbos. This is an issue because, again, the turbo's modeled. There is a model, literally, of the stock turbo and the stock turbo behavior in the stock ECU. And once you change that, that model just goes right out the window. That's why we usually ask for a aftermarket boost controller, because it'll be a lot more consistent. The operating methods are really complex because it's a very new and advanced ECU from Siemens, and the ROM is gigantic. Disassembling, doing all the definition work is really time consuming and really problematic. That's pretty much why there isn't much stock ECU support in the aftermarket world, because it's a really complicated ROM. It's made so all the stock components last you the 10 years that Hyundai is giving you as a warranty. And like I said, there are poor data logging options. We can log through OBD, we can get ignition timing, we can get the commanded fuel ratio, the boost, but you can't see exactly what the ECU is doing to command this timing. You can't really see what process it's going through to calculate how much it's going to open an injector. All the aftermarket ECUs tell you this data. They tell you if it's adding because of intake air temperature, coolant temperature, boost, maybe some safety is activated and it's adding fuel. All the aftermarket ECUs tell you this. Stock ECU doesn't. For who is this the stock ECU tune? It's for people with FBO mods, intake, exhaust, just small mods, small injector changes, maybe a bolt-on turbo that still behaves close like the factory turbo and it's running under the map limit, which is 22 psi on BK1, 27 psi on BK2. It'll run decently. And if you don't care about flex fuel, you want to run a straight E85 or straight 93 or 91, you can keep a stock ECU. It'll work fine. But if you want to flex fuel, you want to make big mugs, make big power, and you want more safeties than what the stock ECU can give you, we need to go to one of the aftermarket ECUs, and we're going to start with the Link ECU. The price of the Link ECU is going to be $2,100 for the G4 Plus, $2,500 for the G4X. Tunes for each, they run the same prices as Haltech. $500 for the initial tune, doesn't matter what mods you have. $750 for a flex fuel tune, which means it gets tuned on your base fuel, be it 91 or 93, and on E85. So since these ECUs can receive an input, they can switch between maps on the fly. So you don't need to switch your maps, go to a dealer, switch a map. You just pump your fuel, it detects how much ethanol is in it, and it changes automatically. What are the advantages to a Link ECU? It has great drivability. This is a very new ECU. Controls the throttle perfectly, controls your cams properly. It controls everything quite well. We developed the CAN bus implementation, so you get pretty much almost stock-like drivability. It's extremely expandable. You can add many sensors, you can add many outputs, you can control a nitrous system, you can control a boost controller, you can control a meth system with it, you can read If you have a level sensor in your methanol tank, you can tell the link ECU how much methanol you have left, and if it starts running low on methanol, it'll change maps automatically. It's another great thing. The G4X has a traction control. It controls your maps. So you can have different maps depending on the stage of traction control you're in. On BK2, since you have 3 stages, you have 3 maps. On BK1, since you have traction control on and off, you have 2 maps, which will change your throttle opening angles, it'll change your timing, it'll change your fuel, it'll change your boost, all with the stock traction control button. And well, if you have traction control on, you want it's a simple street map just to drive around. You turn traction control off and you want to go really fast, then it does that too. This is only on the G4X since it has a bunch of new features that help us implement all this. It can't be implemented on the G4 Plus, and that's why there's a price difference between them. On the Link ECUs, your boost control, your boost gauge, and your oil temperature gauge, they work like stock. So yeah, on a BK2, you know, they have the stock gauges. They work just like from the factory. And the AC, you don't need an AC box. The AC just works just like from the factory. You put it colder, it blows colder. You put it hotter, it blows hotter. No problems with AC control on the Link ECUs. The design is very robust. You can see in the picture. There's more pictures we can give you if you want them. It doesn't overheat. We run our Evo X with the Link ECU in the engine bay, and it has never given us any heating issues. We always recommend putting them in the cabin anyways, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. The crank and cam sync is extremely fast. The Link ECU starts up really quick. So you start cranking the engine, and maybe in one full turn it's already on. It's really fast to catch sync. It has dual onboard CAN and serial, so we are planning on doing a few things that work with both the Alpha ECU and the Link, and since the Link has serial output, we can connect it to a Bluetooth module. It could work with our Alpha X app that's going to show you a bunch of data and things. Disadvantages to the Link ECU. It's somewhat expensive. It is pretty much the most expensive option right now in terms of the BK2. On the Genesis 2.0 Ts, it's the most expensive option, but again, you get a bunch of advantages for your money. And the Link ECU software is somewhat advanced. It's a bit involved, so not many people have worked with Link ECUs, and obviously we can offer our tuning services, but we also sell these ECUs so you can go to your preferred tuner and have them tune it. For who is the Link ECU? People that want supreme drivability, reliability, and power. Since this is such an advanced ECU, you can get the best of all the worlds. And yeah. Now we're going to go to the Alpha ECU 4chan. The price range on this ECU is from $925, the 4chan, to $1050, the other 4chan. We have two 4chans. One's the parallel. It's designed to be run in parallel, so it's not the one in the picture. And the one that's 1050 is the full 4chan that has a bunch more inputs and outputs, and it's designed to work on a bunch of cars. And on the Genesis Coupe, you can use a bunch of the outputs that aren't used for fuel pump control and such. Since the stock ECU is going to be doing that, you can use those as additional outputs and inputs. The tunes on it, the base tune is $350, and a flex fuel tune is $500. Our Alpha ECU tuning prices are cheaper since this ECU works in parallel with the stock ECU. We don't have to do as much to get everything running perfectly, so you get that passed on as cost savings. What are the advantages to the 4chan? It's the most budget-friendly aftermarket ECU choice. So, as you can see from the prices, it's pretty well priced. You get a lot for your money. It's a pretty good choice if you want to run a big turbo, more boost than the stock ECU allows without any issues. It allows expandability since it has a bunch of I/O, as I previously said. You can control your boost controller. You can add a flex sensor. You can add a methanol level content checker and change your boost levels depending on methanol content or ethanol content too. It controls fuel ignition boost directly. So this doesn't work like a DynoJet CMD. We take control of the fuel injectors and the ignition coils and the boost control solenoid directly. So you don't have a problem with maybe the stock ECU wants to change fuel and that changes your fueling on top. This just controls it directly, so there's no problem with that. It uses a separate map sensor for calculations and it clamps the stock one. So the Alpha ECU uses its own map sensor to make its fuel and timing calculations, so you don't depend on the stock location map sensor. You can keep that one as it is, and you can run higher boost. The stock ECU won't see it, but since the Alpha ECU has complete control over timing and fuel, you get safeties implemented through the Alpha ECU instead. So that allows you to run higher boost in stock and still have a boost cut. Still have all your safeties and make it, if it goes over boost, it'll start pulling timing and adding fuel. If it goes way too much over boost, it cuts boost, and it doesn't depend on the stock ECU to do that. It allows for full automatically switching flex fuel. You can, just like the Link ECU, you can add a flex fuel sensor and it'll compensate boost, fuel, and timing without a problem for your E85. And if you swap back to 91, it'll change automatically back to the 91 settings. It has onboard Bluetooth, so the Alpha ECU can connect to your phone. You can see all the operating parameters in real time, and you can also log in from a laptop with Bluetooth and see all your operating parameters in real time and change them, modify them, whatever you need to do. So let's get started on the disadvantages of the Alpha ECU. The stock ECU is still present, so it has no direct ETC or VVT control. It does not control the fuel pump directly or the emission system directly, which can be seen as an advantage or a disadvantage, because the stock ECU does a very good job of controlling purge cycles and emissions related stuff. But we recommend that you get a back-end flash for the Alpha ECU to get your throttle control more consistent and your VVTs properly mapped. It doesn't have as much expandability as the other aftermarket ECU options right now. We will have CAN bus based expansion boxes for them, but they don't have as much I/O as the Haltech or the Link ECU. For who is the Alpha ECU? They're for the budget builds looking to run higher boost than the stock ECU allows, and for people that are thinking about running flex fuel but doing all this on a budget. It doesn't have direct control of a bunch of things, but it allows you to run more boost, compensate for that boost directly, have flex fuel, have all the nice things, have incredible pops and bangs, have a actual 2-step rev limiter, a bunch of nice features for a pretty low cost of entry. The Haltech Platinum Plug and Play. What are the advantages and disadvantages on this ECU? First, the price. The ECU has an MSRP of $1,550. Tunes range from $500 to $750, just like the Link. What are the advantages of the Haltech Platinum PNP? It's the only one designed directly for the Genesis Coupe. The case, the connector, the board, it's made to be run on a Genesis Coupe, so it's a direct plug and play option. Like I just said, directly plug and play. It's pretty expandable. It has 4 voltage inputs, 4 outputs. 2 of them are switched, 2 of them are pulsed, and 1 just a signal input. It's not a voltage input because it can read a frequency. It's pretty easy to tune. Haltech software is pretty easy to understand. It brings a base map that usually gets your car started right up. It has a good price for what it brings. It's a tried and true ECU. It was made in about 2013. And yeah, it's been running for some time. It's a pretty good price, directly plug and play, and it works. What are the disadvantages to it? It's somewhat unreliable. They're known to fail by overheating if you leave them in the engine bay. They weren't designed to be that hot, so the ETC system usually fails, and that might leave you stranded on the side of the road. A bunch of people have dealt with that. We already know we can relocate the Haltech to inside the cabin, and it works pretty well there. But it does suffer from that design flaw, and it's a pretty obsolete ECU, so they're not gonna update it. It's based on an older Platinum Series ECUs. It's from Haltech when they had the Sprint 500, the Platinum Sport Platinum 1000, Sport Platinum 2000. They're an older series of ECUs, which is pretty good, but they've already made the Elite series, and that new series is way better. It has only one digital input, so if you run flex fuel and you have a BK2 and you want to use the AC control box, you can't, because the only input it has to read a switch is used for flex fuel, or vice versa. If you have AC control, you can't have flex fuel unless you feed it through a voltage input, but that gives you slightly varying readings instead of reading the sensor directly without a conditioner. For who is this ECU? It's people that aren't really concerned much with drivability, but they want big power. This ECU has been the fastest ECU on a 4-cylinder Genesis Coupe. Ran a 10.5 with this ECU, used it pretty much every day, but we did run into issues with throttle control, weird things that since it's an older ECU, then you get a few issues sometimes. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the Haltech Elite 1500 plug and play. Gonna make another PNP board for it, or we might just use the Link ECU. We need to see how much demand there is for it. So let's go on with the price. It's a slightly cheaper than the Link ECUs. Usually on this tier, it's the 1500. It's about $150 cheaper than the Link ECU G4 Plus. And here's the 2500. It's $50 cheaper than the G4X. Tune prices are the same for the same reasons. We just have a base tune for $500 no matter the mods. $750 if you want flex fuels, because we basically do 2 maps in one. What are the advantages of the Elite 1500? It has great drivability like Blink ECU. It's a very new and advanced ECU. Throttle control is great. Cam control is great. Everything works on the dot. It has a very robust design like the newer Link ECU. They're all still recommended to be relocated inside the cabin, but this one won't fail forever. You're not going to burn it out if you leave it in the engine bay. It's pretty reliable. Haltech has been quite a few years in the aftermarket ECU world, and especially on the Genesis Coupes, they made the plug-and-play PN Platinum. Now they made the 1500, and we make it plug and play, and they carried over all the CAN bus stuff they developed for it. It's still there. Software like the Platinum series is pretty simple in our opinion. It's one of the easier tuning softwares to understand. So if you want to tune it, or you have a Haltech tuner, you're gonna get it tuned without a problem. The CAN bus is already implemented. They don't have the AC control stuff, but we've submitted it to them so they can implement it whenever they can, and it works pretty well with the Genesis Coupes and the Kia Fortes. What are the disadvantages? Elite 1500. CAN bus is, like I just said, not fully developed. It needs a AC box for AC control, but that is subject to change soon. Developments rely on Haltech directly. They don't have as much customizability as the Link ECU, which allowed us to create the stock AC compatibility on the Link, the gauge control on the Link. But again, we sent these things to Haltech, and as soon as they can do it, they'll probably implement it. The Elite 1500 will quickly run out of I/O because most of the I/O is used to run the car. It has only been for ignition outputs and for injector outputs. Doesn't have the additional 4 of each that the 2500 has that we can use for other things. And for who is this product? It's for people that want a tested product that comes from a line that has already worked with the Genesis Coupes, Haltech has worked ever since they made the PNP Platinum for the Genesis Coupes. They have worked with the Genesis platform, and this is pretty much a carryover of that with a bunch of upgrades. So yeah, this has been our little presentation. We hope you like it. If you need to know anything, you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Remember to like and follow our pages, AlphaX and AlphaSpeed. Follow the pages of our dealers. If you need more information, you can write our dealers, you can write AlphaX or AlphaSpeed. Both of the pages, we can answer any questions that you have. So yeah, thanks for watching.